I'm not normally the kind of person who likes to court controversy, but I thought on this occasion I'd throw the cat amongst the pigeons by talking about the pros and cons of e-bikes. And for the non-cyclists, you might be thinking, well, how can e-bikes be such a controversial subject? And I can tell you there are many cyclists who think that these things should be banned from trails like this. They should be banned from bike lanes and they should collectively be thrown down a mine shaft. They refer to e-cyclists as being lazy or cheap. If you have an opinion on the subject, then leave a comment down below, and while you're doing that, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel as well, you'll be doing me a huge favour. So I'm going to start this off by looking at all of the cons of e-bikes, but you know what, I think I'll take a little bit of a ride down the trail and find a really nice spot to talk to you. So the first consideration, the first negative really is the weight. And I'm not talking about the moving weight, I'm talking about the weight in every other situation when you're not actually riding the bike. For example, if you lived in a walk-up apartment building, you're really going to struggle getting this thing up and down the stairs, and also transporting it. If you transport it on the back of your car, you're going to have a real heavy-duty hitch. I transport my bikes inside my car. It's not normally an issue because my bikes are fairly lightweight. This thing's a real struggle, and when you're struggling to get a bike in a car, then you can damage the bike, you can damage the car as well. And when it comes to the weight, it's a perfect example of one of those things it's not really a reason not to get an e-bike, but it's just one of those things that you should consider before purchasing an e-bike. And weight is also a significant factor when it comes to storing the bike. Are you storing it indoors? Are you going to suspend it from the ceiling, hang it on the wall? Putting it in the garage, are you going to hang it on the wall? It's heavy, it's weighty, that's going to be much more difficult. The other thing as well, if you're putting it in a shed outside or somewhere where it's going to get cold, you're going to have to store the battery away from the bike because the battery must remain at room temperature. Because it's heavier than a non-electric bike or an acoustic bike, if you will, then you're going to get more wear and tear on things like the chain and the brakes and the tyres. So you have to be prepared to change those more regularly than you would on your regular bike. Many people who buy e-bikes, in fact I would say probably most people who buy e-bikes, are not necessarily going to be experienced cyclists, and an e-bike can be pretty confusing. On this bike, for example, there are 3 rings at the crank, there are 7 gears at the cassette, and then there are 5 different power settings. This thing looks like the flight deck of the Millennium Falcon, and it would confuse anyone. And then you have to remember that the power kicks in as you're pedaling, so you get these sudden surges of power. It can be quite confusing for a newbie cyclist, and it can be kind of intimidating as well. So that's something that you have to consider. Trust me, you will get used to it and you will end up enjoying all of those sensations, but at first it can be quite nerve-wracking. A very minor consideration is charging. It takes about 5 hours to charge the battery on my bike, so you've got to keep on top of it, because the last thing you want to do is grab your bike to go out for a quick ride and find out that you have absolutely zero charge. Having said that, the bike works without a battery on it, but the whole point of an e-bike is to have that assistance. So the question has to be, with all of those negatives, with all of those cons, is there any room left to say anything positive about e-bikes? And well, actually, yeah, there's a lot of room left. E-bikes make cycling accessible to far more people. A day might come when I'm older and more frail, when I won't be able to do rides like this, and an e-bike might give me the accessibility to be able to continue to ride decent distances on trails. It also makes it possible for people of different abilities to ride together. We bought this bike specifically so that my wife could ride with me, and we've actually ridden on this very trail together, something that we wouldn't have done on two regular bikes. The first time I went bike packing, I realised that the distances that you can travel are far smaller than you normally would on an unladen bike. So an e-bike can give you the ability to carry far more equipment and go far greater distances. So it could open up bike packing to far more people. Or if you're already a bike packer, it can make the distances that you travel more extensive. When it comes to the real high-end e-mountain bikes, it makes climbing incredibly rocky terrain up severely steep hills a possibility. Something that you wouldn't have dreamed of doing on just a regular mountain bike. Also, for those people who enjoy riding down the beautiful flowing trails but don't like riding up the hills, it takes the strain and the chore of getting uphill away from them. Now, having said that, if you do come to a point where the terrain is just too rocky or too steep and it is impossible to ride, then hiking a bike like this and trying to get this over fences and across rivers and things like that is incredibly difficult. Now, I feel a bit guilty because I snuck a negative into my positives column. Now, many people would say you don't get the same exercise benefit from an e-bike as you do from a regular bike, and I think I tend, generally speaking, to agree with that. But you do get exercise on an e-bike. You don't always have to have it at the easiest setting. For example, today I've had it at setting number 1 or 2 out of 5 for most of my ride. You can also choose to go up far more hills than you would do normally on your regular bike. So you can get an exercise benefit from an e-bike as well. Now, despite that multiplicity of positive things that I can say about e-bikes, from a personal level, I am going to stick to my regular acoustic bikes for as long as I possibly can. There's just something I get. There's a connection between me and the trail, between the effort I put in and the benefit I get out, that I just don't think can be replaced for me by an e-bike. But the day will come, I'm sure, when bikes like this, or maybe even this bike, become more and more a part of my cycling routine. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you a bit of an insight. Maybe it's helped you make a decision on whether you would purchase your own e-bike. If you have enjoyed it, please remember, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I shall see you on the next ride.